Yo, Shad. Yo, Shad. Everybody say hi to YouTube. Shad, what's up, YouTube? Hey, yo. So, Shad, let's do this. We finna watch this video and we finna react to it because it's about the Brazilian Mafia. You feel me? Like, and y'all know we finna go hop on Mafia 2 just after this. And mind you, we already played a long time ago back in PS3 season. You feel me? We played the demo and shit. And we played that full game, but we finna run it back just cause we finna do a little marathon now, you feel me? So we gonna be playing like all that GTA franchise and Mafia. Like we finna go Mafia 2, then maybe Mafia 1. That one we see, you feel me? But then we finna go Vice City, San Andreas, GTA 6, maybe GTA 4 and GTA 5. All the story mode, you feel me? We finna go through it, bro, cause like Vice City and San Andreas, bro, those were G classic. And San Andreas been my favorite. I feel like San Andreas was everybody's favorite GTA. You feel me? So we just trying to get right into it, but like let's go do this shit. Cause after this, we find watch other video type shit that y'all want to see, and then we find get right. But let's get right with this first. You feel me? Let's see what's up with Vito cartoon, bro. Y'all don't know, bro. Y'all finna see this shit is straight movies, bro. Like word too. But let's get into it. Let's
In The
see what's
Godfather,
up.
there's something that until today has us wondering. A question that wasn't clearly answered and still captivates many debates. In the film, after Sonny was taken out, we see Don Vito needing to step in, while he still had not fully recovered, in order to prevent his empire from collapsing. He calls a meeting with the heads of the 5 families who rule over New York. At this meeting, Vito goes in to make peace with the other families in order to safely bring back his son Michael from his exile in Sicily. But Vito's goals and intentions behind the meeting were not limited to the needed to verify who was behind these lethal attacks on his family. And so the question that to this day has not been answered is how exactly did Vito know it was Barzini all along? How could he have exposed the true culprit from that one meeting and discern that it wasn't just Talia responsible for all these events? That's exactly what we'll uncover in this episode. But I have to warn you, this will change everything you thought you knew about The Godfather forever. This meeting is the most pivotal point in the entire trilogy. The outcomes of this meeting change everything. There's a pivotal point in
The Godfather. Damn.
The entire trilogy. The outcomes of this meeting.
Should we watch that movie on Discord though? All 3? How y'all think, chat? Let me know.
Change everything. There's so much significance to what is being said that all these years later, we're still able to unearth all these hidden gems. So, after watching this episode, you'll know how and why Don Vito was able to uncover this masterful plot, taking you through his thought process and more importantly, allowing us to learn and benefit from this scenario. The meeting breakdown. Going into this meeting, the thing that lingered in the other Dons' minds is the reasoning behind calling such a meeting. Vito had just lost his eldest son, his heir to the empire, and his response? A peace summit? What was his play? Could this have actually been the submission of the Godfather himself? Well, they were about to find out. Now, as the meeting begins, there are a number of interesting things to keep in mind. And the first thing you'll notice, and perhaps the biggest red flag, is the seating arrangement. Note that in other meetings with heads of the families, that seat is always reserved for Vito. But given these circumstances, there might be an exception. Was Barzini sitting there to act as the mediator between both parties?
Hey, so he's not bro like, hey, this is my clan now, bro. Yo, he trying to take over? Shit,
let's see. A fair and impartial judge, or was Barzini consolidating his own position, asserting that this is a new era, the new power hierarchy in the Mafia? Keep this in mind as we go through this. The first thing Vito does is formally thanks all the Dons present, exactly what you would expect, nothing out of the ordinary. He also shows his disapproval of how things have escalated. But listen closely to what the first few words out of Barzini's mouth are.
You're all grateful to Don Corleone for calling this meeting. We all know him as a man of his word. Modest man, always listen to reason.
He'll always listen to reason. This is very important and we'll unpack in a minute, but this is setting up the whole dynamic as if Vito was the one at fault. It's also quite belittling in a way. However, this by itself could just be interpreted as Barzini trying to show off his newly enhanced position of power, acting as the wise peacemaker who's just trying to help. But he also does something
you always be
interesting.
you always be the closest one to you that be doing it to you.
As if indicating to Tattaglia to speak his lines. Let's continue.
Damn.
Tattaglia brings his case for why he was not at fault.
Yes, he's too modest. He had all the judges and politicians in his pocket. He refused to share them.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
I need Don Corleone, those politicians that you carry in your pocket.
This won't be the only time. Once Vito continues to make his case for why he was opposed to the deal, he reminds them of what they already know, but seem to have forgotten.
When did I ever refuse an accommodation? Followed along here, except one time. Why? Because I believe this drug business is going to the source of years to come. To the church, even the police departments that have helped us in the past, and now refuse to help us because of narcotics. And I believe that then, and I believe that now.
Vito had a great relationship with all the families. At the very least, he had a working relationship with all. Everyone knew Vito was a fair, and here's that word again, reasonable man. Favors between bosses were very serious, and Vito had credit with almost all the men in that meeting. As he continues, he sounds very reasonable, and up until these recent events, most of these bosses completely agreed. But then something very interesting happens.
And I believe that then, and I believe that now.
Times have changed. It's not like the old days. A refusal is not the act of a friend. Don Corleone had all the judges and the politicians in New York. Then he must share them, all about his youth. He must let us draw the water from the well.
Even Vito is slightly surprised. This is the moment where everything changes, the trigger that pulled the curtain, revealing a deep mystery that had plagued Don Vito's mind up until now. We're gonna come back to this. Here, everything is subtle. Notice the way they're
Getting
looking at
heavy,
each other.
chat.
Wanting to continue this grand strategy, Vito reiterates his willingness to concede on this deal, if it meant peace, which is a big deal. Tattaglia, maybe in a short instant of actual intelligence, calls out Vito's claims of peace directly.
But I must have strict assurance from Corleone. As time goes by and his position becomes stronger, will he attempt any individual vendetta?
Of course, up until now, it's all well and good to say you want peace and want everything to go back as they were before. But what guarantees he won't change his mind later? He wasn't accusing Vito of lying, but brings up the fact.
Yo, chat, y'all just got pay attention to this, because this correlates so much to that game we about play, bro. Y'all got no idea. If y'all play Mafia 2, y'all seen it, y'all know what we're talking about, chat. Like, let's keep watching, y'all.
That Vito may have accepted his fate for now, but what if he suddenly feels the urge for revenge? He lays it out for them.
You talk about vengeance. Vengeance gonna bring us to the right deal. From my point of view, I forgot the vengeance of my son. But I have selfish reasons. My youngest son was supposed to leave this country.
Here, Vito seals the deal.
That aside, let me say that I swear on the souls of my grandchildren that I will not be the one to break the peace we've made here today.
Of course, Vito was a reasonable man and a man of honor, but his eldest son was just murdered. So, suddenly becoming a pacifist doesn't make much sense. He unveils
See, I
that
ain't
the
know
true
that.
reasoning behind wanting peace was to bring back his exiled son who had just survived an assassination attempt. Here, Tattaglia is genuinely sold. The fact that Godfather himself gave his word, swore on the lives of those dearest to him. And Vito wasn't lying, he genuinely meant every word. More on this later, and so this was felt by Tattaglia. But guess who seemed the most skeptical? Of course, Don Barzini. It's quite amusing how in the beginning Barzini was the light-hearted one, trying to act very level-headed.
We have uncovered
I'm telling you, bro, it'd be the closest one to
eyes
you.
were like daggers. He couldn't believe what he was witnessing. It was almost too good to be true. Could this actually be the end of the unbreakable Godfather? Did this event really crush Vito that low? Was his reign as the boss of bosses actually over? Well, it would seem so. But as long as Vito was alive, the Corleone family needed to remain alive. What's clear is that coming out of this meeting, there is a new boss of bosses. How Vito knew it was Barzini all along. So now we know all the information we need, we can now take you through Don Vito's thinking process. Up until this point, Barzini's plan was an absolute masterpiece. Both Machiavelli and Sun Tzu would have given him a round of applause. However, if you're part of the culture mafia, you would have realized by now that Barzini had broken multiple laws of power. He was doing so well, so close to executing his plan perfectly, but he simply could not follow through. Let's break it down. Vito began the meeting by laying out his cards. He states that he's willing to go back to the way things were before, especially since this war cost both men their sons' lives. Interestingly, Barzini does praise Vito's modesty and character, but then quickly reframes the entire discussion away from the loss Tattaglia and Vito suffered, instead directing the conversation towards Vito's refusal of the narcotics trade, almost disregarding it as simply as the cost of Vito's actions, which Tattaglia is quick to comment on, almost as if he was told what to say and exactly when, as if both Dons came in having rehearsed with each other, doing the whole good cop, bad cop routine. But it gets even more obvious. After Vito lists his reasoning behind his refusal, in which all were reasonable, Barzini quickly interjects and starts to sway the argument by dismissing Vito's reasoning as old-fashioned. This was the first hint that Vito had that Tattaglia and Barzini were both involved. But as the meeting progressed, Barzini began to unintentionally reveal more and more. Add to that all the suspicious constant eye contact between Barzini and Tattaglia, hinting that they were subtly communicating. Probably the most obvious clue that Vito had that allowed him to realize it was actually Barzini all along was when he said, "A refusal is not the act of a friend." Even though it's very subtle, Barzini was actually threatening Vito, or him stating that Vito must share his connections. He's giving Vito an ultimatum. Either accept and be a friend, or...
Yo, y'all hearing this chat, yo? So he's basically saying like, yo, we finding you a connect. You already know what that means. If you get the connect, you don't need nigga no more pack, you feel me? Like, nah. He trying to smoke that pack, bro. But that shit not happening, bro. Like, yo, that shit crazy, though. Like, shit really be crazy.
You'll be a foe. Like we mentioned in these meetings, the masters of the game of power don't make open threats.
The Mafia, that shit goes deep, bro.
Open to interpretation. At the same time, they're not afraid to remind others who they are and what they're capable of doing. He could have said it more directly, making his threat more direct and potent. But Barzini was far too cunning for that. He chose those words very carefully. He wanted to give Vito both options in a way that, one, doesn't make Barzini seem like the aggressor, which could also lead to the families to side with Vito, and two, labels whoever disagrees with this proposition.
Barzini's smart though, nigga was trying to play it low key.
Which then makes him justified to take more severe action. Also, many of you would have picked up on the small details we mentioned earlier in this video. Vito and Barzini have history during the Olive Oil War. Back when Barzini was only a capo under Don Mariposa's organization, he had failed to take out Vito, and even after they made peace, Barzini had aspirations to take over from Vito as the most powerful Don in the country. And he could only do so if he had Vito's connections, which served as one of Vito's most important assets. But what most people don't realize is that this goes way deeper. When Vito says it was Barzini all along, he now sees that this was not the only thing on Barzini's mind. You see, Vito had finally come to realize Barzini's true hidden intentions behind all of this, the true extent of Barzini's ambition. This wasn't just about this new venture. This is something that Barzini's been plotting ever since the day Vito had become the new Godfather. The easiest way to look at this is to ask who benefited the most from this. Well, Tattaglia and Barzini were going to make a ton of money, but that's nothing new. What really changes is the shift of the power dynamics. Barzini was the second most powerful Don in the country. Taking out Vito means he would be the capo di tutti capi. What was Barzini's master plan? To keep all this as simple as possible, here's what Barzini was thinking. Barzini knew he couldn't take on Vito on his own, but if most of the other families were on his side, well, then he had a pretty good shot. It's pretty simple, isn't it? Well, not quite. Here's why. How do you dethrone the Godfather himself? He was known to be a fair and reasonable man with great relations with all. But even putting all that to the side, like what Frankie said, the Corleone family was like the Roman Empire. So he needed to wait until he saw an opening, a chink in Vito's seemingly impenetrable armor. It took years, but once he saw the slightest hint of weakness in the Don, he pounced. He managed to use Tattaglia and Solozzo as puppets and shield himself from being the direct target of the Corleone family. All the while, he is constantly planning his next move to finally crush the Corleone family and take over. So after the hit on Vito, Tattaglia and the Corleones were in a full-scale war. Tattaglia suffered most of the brunt from the Corleone family, where he lost his son, while Barzini slowly started chipping away and taking over some of the Corleone family's territories. But like I said, his plan, in theory at least, his plan was almost perfect, with so many different layers that we don't have time to go in depth in this video. So let's get into how and why Barzini's plan, just before claiming a total victory, came crashing down. Barzini's deadly mistake. A lot can be said, and it's quite complicated, but essentially it all comes down to these three deadly mistakes. Number one, saying more than necessary. It's interesting because here you have a perfect example of one person following this law of power, and the other blatantly breaking it. The law states, power is in many ways a game of appearances, and when you say less than necessary, you inevitably appear greater and more powerful than you are. Your silence will make other people uncomfortable. Humans are machines of interpretation and explanation. They have to know what you are thinking. When you carefully control what you reveal, they cannot pierce your intentions or your meaning. Your short answers and silences will put them on the defensive, and they will jump in, nervously filling the silence with all kinds of comments that will reveal valuable information about them and their weaknesses. They will leave a meeting with you feeling as if they had been robbed, and they will go home and ponder your every word. This extra attention to your brief comments will only add to your power. The less you say, the less risk you run of saying something foolish, even dangerous. Vito went into this in the losing position. There's no doubt about that. But once Barzini starts exposing his thoughts and plans, it changes everything. Before going into the meeting, Vito was confused, stunned, and just the weakest he's ever been since climbing to power. But not only that, Vito now uncovered who his true enemy was all this time, which leads to Barzini's second deadly mistake. Number 2. What gave Barzini such a brilliant position and so much leverage was the fact that he remained in the shadows. Imagine being at war, but not sure with who. He was using Tattaglia and Solozzo as shields, the ones to receive the wrath of the Corleone family and their allies, all the while working in the shadows. But now,
that nigga's smart though, chat.
Was lost.
Nigga, that shit, that backfire never came to him.
Smoke screen. Vito was no longer fighting the puppets, as he had now uncovered the puppet master. What served as the catalyst for Don Barzini's downfall? But let's go a step further, because his blunder becomes even more lethal. Number 3. Even having exposed his cards, it didn't change the fact that he was at the moment at least more powerful than Vito and in the superior position. He still had the chance to rectify his mistake, but instead he failed to see and identify his blunder. If Barzini realized that his position had been exposed, that his smokescreen had faded away, he could have remained vigilant and altered his strategy. All he needed to do is to be honest with himself and reflect on everything that occurred in that decisive meeting, but he didn't. Now, this could have been the result of his arrogance, but it also hints at a deeper flaw in his strategic thinking, which also ties in that he broke another law of power. More specifically, Law 29, plan all the way to the end, which states the ending is everything. Plan all the way to it, taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that might reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances, and you will know
that
when
is
to
true,
stop.
though.
Gently
Chat,
guide
that is
fortune
true.
and help determine
Make a
the
plan,
future
you
by
guys see it all the
thinking
way
far
through.
ahead. We'll have to go deeper in an upcoming episode, but this is what sealed the deal. Not realizing his mistake and arrogantly claiming victory before his enemy had fully conceded. But now, as always, we never leave you without some real-life lessons that will give you a massive advantage in life. Since you made it this far, make sure you join us and become part of the Culture Mafia. This should just be between us, so listen closely. Lesson 1. Know your enemy and know yourself. This was one of the most important weapons in Vito's arsenal. Vito had a thorough understanding of his enemies. He wouldn't have been able to pick up on the subtleties we discussed earlier. He understood the improbability that Tattaglia alone was the architect of such a skillful scheme. What he sought was solid evidence that could reveal the authentic intricacies of this clever plot, enough that it would unveil the true depths of this cunning plot. Understanding your foe, their moves, their motives, and equally crucial, knowing your own strengths and limitations is like having a map of the battlefield etched into your mind. It allows you to uncover all the potential moves your opponent can make. It's foresight, my friend, the kind that turns the odds in your favor. But, and here's the thing, should you only know yourself and remain clueless about your adversary, well, victory may come, but so too will defeat. You'll be dancing blindfolded, guessing the steps, and sooner or later, you'll stumble. And God forbid if ignorance clouds both your knowledge of self and enemy, you're marching into the jaws of defeat with open arms. In every battle, you'll be at the mercy of fate, tossed around like a ship in a storm. It's about knowing the moves of the other guy on the chessboard. Understanding him, his strengths, and his weaknesses gives you the upper hand. It's not just about fighting, it's about outsmarting, outthinking, and coming out on top in whatever field you're playing in. So, remember, knowledge is power, and in the world we live in, that's a valuable currency. Know yourself, know your enemy, and in the grand theater of life, you'll emerge not just as a player, but as the orchestrator of destiny. Lesson 2. Play along carefully. Find out what they're scheming. Sometimes their smokescreen is too thick, their moves too well hidden, where the only option you have is to play along. But here's where you can start turning things to your favor. You need to go in already knowing you're being lied to.
That's a fact.
Your opponent is trying to manipulate you. Then proceed with caution.
That's a fact, because I tried that shit, you feel me? And that shit work. When niggas should be thinking you don't know shit, you just play the dumb guy like you don't know. Whole time, you trying to see their whole plan, but it's trying to play out how you want it to play out, because you already know how niggas is moving, for me? That's the least step right there, bro. I'm telling you, bro. I done that shit, bro. Like, when you act dumb, niggas don't know. Like, you already know what niggas be on, and you just act like you don't know shit. Like, alright, bet, let's see how this goes. You already know how the fuck it's gonna play out, because you already know where he taking it, but he don't know what, like, you know, you feel me? So, you already has a whole background plan to that shit, bro. Cause that shit happened to me. I was like, oh, shit. And the whole time, you're the smart one, you feel me? Just know shit, for me, that's it.
Until you find out where they are leading you. The crucial part comes next. Armed with the knowledge gained through their attempt at manipulating you, you can use your intellect to unravel the trap and thwart the plans of those trying to harm or deceive you, just as Vito did. And then, not knowing you had uncovered their plan from early on, they won't see you coming, ensuring that, in the end, the schemers face consequences for their designs.
Exactly, Jack.
If Vito had just declared war and with sheer brute force tried to expose Barzini, he would have guaranteed the annihilation of his empire. But since he played along with Barzini, giving him the illusion that he was in control, not in a million years could he have seen what was coming. Which ties in perfectly with Law 29 of the 48 Laws of Power. Lesson 3. Always conduct yourself respectfully. Something else I thought was quite interesting and something we can all benefit from is the way Vito conducts himself in these meetings. He's always respectful. He doesn't burst out with insults or even make threats.
That's what I gotta handle. I gotta learn how to do that shit.
He talks with the baker during Connie's wedding, and then how he negotiates with the same people who...
That's my boy.
It directly coincides with mastering emotional control. He hates them with all his heart, but still knows that expressing these feelings does not benefit him.
Exactly.
He humbles himself while at the same time still asserting his authority.
That's what shit.
Lesson
Hey,
4.
no cap. That lesson right there, yo. I feel like that's some shit we all gotta bear to. You feel me? Like, know how to manage your emotions. You feel me? Like, just play it out, bro. Like, alright. You feel me? Like, alright, what's up? Yeah. Even though your thoughts might be some other shit, you feel me? You might want to spark it out right there with bro and shit. You feel me? But I be like, yo, it's all, feel me? Like, it's not love type shit. You feel me? Don't get fucked up. But like, nigga, we doing business. Let's just fight down and just handle our shit. You feel me? That's what shit I gotta learn how to do. Like, put that emotion aside and just start chilling, just vibe out. You feel me? But we trying to get right with that shit. Chat on G.
Or understand the long-term play. At its core, Law 29 challenges us to transcend the myopia of short-term gains and losses. It heralds the importance of adopting a holistic perspective, akin to a military general surveying the battlefield, cognizant of the potential twists and turns that lie ahead. To plan all the way to the end is to navigate the labyrinth of life with a compass forged from strategic insight. The laws echo the sentiment that power is a marathon, not a sprint. It discourages impulsive decisions and urges practitioners to resist the allure of immediate gratification. It invites us to think of power not as a fleeting flame, but as a steadily burning ember that, with careful planning, can ignite a roaring fire. A key aspect of Law 29 is its resonance with the concept of strategic depth. It encourages us to create plans with layers, contemplating contingencies and alternative routes. Just as a skilled general prepares for multiple scenarios on the battlefield, the practitioner of this law understands that the journey to power is rife with uncertainties, and a well-prepared mind can weather any storm. Vito understands this, and so he makes his moves, keeping in mind his long-term play. But like we mentioned, this law needed its own episode, so be on the lookout for that. In the final episode of this mini-series, we'll be analyzing the brilliant strategy that both Vito and Michael had utilized to crush their opponent. This law is extremely dangerous and can easily backfire. And now?
Nah, W episode, Chad. W episode. That shit was fire. We finna keep watching this shit. This, I ain't gonna cap. I like this shit right here. Like, knowing more about like not the mafia, but like the way them niggas be thinking, bro. Cause yo, that shit about them, they're so like upright and shit, bro. Like they look like they hold themselves to like values and standards, bro. That's why I like, at least in the movies and shit, and like the game that we found play, bro. Like it's all connected. That like nigga, it's a family thing. Like them niggas become so big or fall so down because it's a together thing. It's a family. It's like us right now, community. We find out go up together, you feel me? Or we find out just crash down, you feel me? It all depends on the journey. But like the mafia, my nigga, they just do some shit, like some family ties that just, hey yo, the family, let's go, let's lock in on this. Ooh, you feel me? So if I stay tuned, if I keep doing this shit, but now it's time to play that game. It's time to play that game. Let's go get right with that shit, yo. Let's go. Let's go play some Mafia real quick. Like, what y'all think?